Mayor Panko, Chair Robinson, we're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Monday, October 7th Committee of the Whole meeting. I'm Councillor Steve Robinson, and I'll be the chair tonight. We'll begin by reading the land acknowledgement. On October 7th, 2024, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. And can I have a mover and seconder for moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Patton? Oh, hold on.
Were we going to have an amendment to the agenda?
We are. I'll deal with you guys now. We have a guest in attendance tonight for 10.6 under priority issues. So we're going to move that one up to the very beginning so that he won't have to wait too long. Anyway, so can I have a motion for the amended agenda? Councillor Miller and seconded by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest and the general nature thereof? Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I need to declare a conflict of interest in priority issue 10.7 as my employer will be applying for a community grant.
Thank you. We don't have any minutes and we have no delegations. Are there any CAO, the director's reports?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one director's report this evening with Manager Crowder.
Good evening, Council. I just wanted to acknowledge the grand opening of Books Better on the weekend. They're a new bookstore in town. They're located at the Artisans Village. So congratulations to Jennifer for opening her new store. It was really well attended, and not this Jennifer, another Jennifer, but yeah, it looks really good and a great addition to that new I guess retail spot. So we've had 2 grand openings in the last month there, so they're starting to fill out. So I encourage people to go down and check them out. We have confirmed the dates for the public consultation for the BRE and investment attraction strategy, and that will be October 21st to 23rd. That will include some stakeholder consultations with various groups, as well as an open community stakeholder consultation in the evening. More information will come out for that. We'll do a news release to the community. And the Still Sanding episode of Smith Falls is set to air October 22nd. Staff are working on a watch party. So we're working with Station Theatre in order to open that up to have people come down and watch it as a community, as well as working with some local restaurants to hopefully stream it at a restaurant so you could have dinner and watch it there as well. Those are my updates.
Thank you. All right, moving on. We have no committee of the whole consent reports, no in-camera or closed session. So we're moving right along to priority issues, and we'll do the 10.6 Confederation Bridge Award of Design Build Contract with Director McMunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for consideration of moving this up on the agenda this evening. As you'd mentioned, we have Ramin from TSI Inc. with us here this evening to assist with any technical related questions that may come as a result of the presentation here this evening. So I'm happy to advise that we're here this evening talking about the Confederation Bridge and the award of its design build contract for a timber bridge. The purpose of the report, like I said, is to garner some direction from Council this evening on a path forward for the replacement of what we know to be the Confederation Bridge. As we know, the bridge has been out of service since 2015. The timber deck has been removed off it for some time since 2015, and there it sits, completely out of service. So there's definitely interest from this council. It is a priority item to address and get this bridge replaced in this term of council. So as we recall, back in March of 2024, council received a report from myself. At the time, we presented some options for a timber bridge from an unsolicited proposal that we received from a contractor back at that time. We presented that to council, and council felt it prudent to follow our own procurement bylaw and go out to market and see if we could solicit some more interest in this project from other proponents. So we did just that. We issued an RFP late summer. We closed on that RFP on the 20th of September 2024, and we received 5 submissions from project consortiums. When I say consortiums, I mean groups of proponents came together. There'd be bridge architects, consultants, geotechnical people. So they'd form these consortiums to bid on this project being a design build. So as we know, there's people out there that have expertise in design, but not necessarily construction. So we know that the unsolicited proposal that we received from StructureCraft, they do have in-house services to not only design, but also construct and commission a bridge. So that's what we went out for through the RFP process to solicit some more interest in the project. And like I'd mentioned before, we received 5 total submissions. So the review committee, comprised of myself, Mayor Panko, Chris McGuire, and Don Quinn, myself, Mayor Panko, and Ramin from TSI. We went to work in assessing the submissions and scoring them based on a number of different things from a technical perspective, being understanding of the assignment, company experience in past projects, project team and project manager, conceptual design. So that would be the renderings that we received, and you'll see them throughout the document as attachments at the end of the document. Their methodology, schedule, and that would be it. So that would round out the scoring to a total of 70 points on the technical proposal portion of the submissions, and then the pricing proposal would be subject to a total score of 30 points in total. That's 30 points would be awarded for the submissions that were the lowest price, and then the other proposals would fall in line, and they'd be scored based on a scoring matrix that we use for them to come up with a total point for their financial proposal. So like I said, we received 5 submissions, one from DW Building Restoration Services, Inc. and Art Engineering. That would be that consortium. Thomas Fuller Construction Co. Limited, Multi-Build Solutions Group, Wood Research Development and Timber Restoration Services were another consortium that came together. Louis W. Bray Construction, and lastly, StructureCraft Builders, Inc. So those aren't listed in any particular order. Technical proposals ranged in scoring from just shy of 35 points all the way up to 97.33. And of course, financial proposals ranged for the lowest price of 30 points, which was given to StructureCraft for their pricing proposal, all the way down to 2.31 out of 30, which would have been Louis W. Bray in this particular case. Prices range from $1,885,100 for StructureCraft, all the way up to $3,625,000 from Louis Bray, and pricing in between those two numbers. I should note that the second lowest price was $2.8169, so that's $2,816,900 from Multi-Build Solutions Group, Wood Research Development and Timber Restoration Services. So like I said, the group went, we went to work, we scored the proposals, we pulled the working group together, which was comprised of Councillor Quinn, Councillor McGuire, Mayor Panko, myself, CEO Morris, and Ramin from TSI Inc. So we came together Don, you were the only one that was missing that particular day. So we looked at all the proposals, particularly the design of the structures, and again, they're all at the back of the document in a number of attachments at the back. So part of the assignment was for these consortiums to work with their architectural bridge design team to come up with artist renderings of what they envisioned the bridge to look like. So we saw mostly, with the exception of one submission, had covered bridge structure. The only one that didn't would have been Thomas Fuller Construction Co. Limited, but the rest of them did have variations of a covered bridge structure. So they, checked the boxes with respect to that part of the technical proposal. All wood structures. Some really beautiful renderings. I presume everybody's had a chance to look at all the pictures associated with the report. Multi-Build Solutions Group, they went at it a little bit differently. They had what I would consider to be more of a traditional covered bridge structure. That would be in attachment 4. However, they were, if I'm not mistaken, they were the most expensive of the options that were presented. And then we get to, at the back of the document, Structurecraft Brick Builders, Inc., attachment number 6. Their first proposal, or their first option, would have been a multi-span or a dual span bridge utilizing the center pier. And that particular first option would be respective of their price at the $1.885 million and change. So like I said, the group, we deliberated on what we felt comfortable bringing back to the whole of council and committee to inform on a decision. And we had a very lengthy conversation, and we felt that alternative number 1, being this clear span shallow arch bridge, was kind of checked all the boxes in terms of at least what the working group was most comfortable with. And I think that's the comfort level was for a number of different reasons. The one being that it really did present the best sight lines in view from being out on the bridge and looking from the shoreline to the bridge and being able to see through the structure to the canal to the north if you were looking downstream, looking upstream. And vice versa, if you were crossing the pedestrian walkway adjacent to the canal that's managed by Parks Canada and you look down through the bridge, you can see through without an encumbrance of looking at, 2 arches coming down into the center pier area. So full unencumbered view. Some other details that they added, which I thought were quite unique, is they have a masonry facade on the bottom section of the timber arches where they would connect into the ground. So they've capped them in a masonry stone, which is really quite visually appealing. And I should note as well that they didn't demonstrate it in their renderings, but there is a full pedestrian lighting, LED lighting that is associated with the bridge as well. So like a low level lighting to illuminate the deck of the structure. There was a third option that they presented, which would have been the clear span high arch. That one in particular does not have a roof, just based on the nature of the design itself, although very pretty looking bridge. But again, it was an option for us to consider, but we decided that wasn't the best, in our opinion, for the replacement of the Confederation Bridge with the timber bridge. So hopefully that's enough information with me talking and rambling on. I'm interested to hear what committee has to say about the working group's recommendation to proceed with the bridge that we've identified through our deliberations. And with that, I'm, through the chair, happy to take any questions. And like I said, we have Ramin here this evening as well, who's quite intimate with this project. So he's here to answer any technical related questions, and I'll do my best to assist as well.
Thank you.
Who would like to start?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And thanks a lot, Paul. It's great to get this to committee tonight. I know it's been a long time coming, and a big thanks to Ramin at TSI because he's been with us all the way and really helpful to the subcommittee, and it's been great working with you. So thank you for your help. I was just going to start with a question on the price, including the net HST of 1.76. That includes the shallow arch, the cedar gluam, the DLT roof, and the lighting.
Yes, just give me a second here, Councilor McGuire. Yeah, option. Sorry, just looking at the attachment one, and that's not where I need to be.
No, that's
Yeah, the overall budget. Yeah, the overall budget for the replacement of the Confederation Bridge at 1.367. That was originally for a steel structure.
Sorry, I mean the 2.099.
Oh, the 2.099.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm clear on which additionals are included in that from the base price.
Yeah, so the 2.099 would be inclusive of alternative number 1, the clear span shallow arch at a premium of 55,700. So that's 55,700 for the single span over and above a dual span utilizing the center pier. I trust that makes sense. And then the value add of the Alaskan yellow blue lamb cedar at 62,800. I think Ramin can agree that that's a tremendous value for. I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but it will effectively prolong the life of the bridge. I mean, we already would consider this bridge to be in a useful life of somewhere between 75 and 100 years, so a century with maintenance over that period. And then the dowel laminated timber roof would be another element that would round out that number. So
Okay,
the clear span shallow arch, the Alaskan yellow cedar, the dowel laminated timber, and the lighting would be inclusive of that overall price as well.
Okay, great. And if I'm remembering correctly, there's right now, this includes a downstream viewing platform. To add an upstream viewing platform would be approximately $30,000.
Yes, I believe it was something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So very supportive of the value added aspects that are included because if we do the clear span shallow arch, we don't have to use the abutment in the center. And when we look at the abutment in the center, it's going to take masonry work. It's in the water. It's got really high moisture exposed to it. And I think the maintenance on that is going to be more than the $55,700 extra that we're going to have to pay to just span the bridge. So I think there's a good business case for that. Reading the material from the structure craft and hearing from Ramin, it sounds like the gluam is going to save us money too in maintenance on the wood over time. So for that $62,800, it seems like really good value for the longevity of the structure. The dowel laminated timber roof to keep birds out. Obviously, we've still got problems with the birds in the town hall. I don't want to have problems with birds on this bridge too. So, and it's expensive to deal with this stuff. We look at the price of dealing with the geese and everything else. So I think that's a really good spend. And the lighting, I regret that we didn't do the lighting on the pedestrian walkway. So I really hope we do it on this one because we still don't have that lighting plan in the parks going. So really support all those. The one I support that's not on here is having an upstream viewing platform. Because we're Smith Falls, I think people want to see the falls, and I think that upstream viewing platform would be really beneficial for that because it's the last set of falls in town at post locks. Overall, I want to make some comments on the process and the design options presented tonight. Just because I know, like any big project, it's going to come with a little bit of controversy, and there's lots of discussion in the community about it. I think. If we were all going to design a perfect bridge or what we think should go there, we'd all have a different structure that would come forward. What I really like about the design that's come forward tonight is that it uses wood, it uses stone, and it uses metal. And that's really reflective of the bridges that have been in place at this site since the first bridge was built. The first bridge built there was timber. The bridge that we're taking down now, as we know, is metal. And the stone has been so critical to the building of the locks, the abutments, the dam that's behind the parking lot. So it really brings all those traditional building materials together. I think in a way that only Smith Falls does, it takes something that is modern, but it also pairs it with those traditional materials. And by doing that, we're having a lower carbon footprint because the timber, as we know, is a more effective material at storing the carbon. It takes less to build. So it's more environmentally friendly. And this is a bridge that the way it's been designed and the way it's been sold to us should be able to last in perpetuity. So when we look at the council of 100 and whatever years ago that built the Beckwith Street Bridge, I'm sure there was conversations on the cost and the discussion of, should we spend the money? Should we not spend the money? But ultimately, they put that bridge in place, and we've been able to maintain that bridge in perpetuity till today. And it looks like it's going to last well over another 100 years. So I'd really like to see us invest today in a structure that's going to have a similar kind of longevity and be a real legacy project for this council and for the town, that we can say, we've put something together that really met the times with environmental sustainability. It used cutting edge engineering techniques, but it also used the traditional materials that was reflective of the site and the heritage context of, the heritage landscape of the Rideau Canal. So very supportive tonight. Hopefully we can find $30,000 for the upstream viewing platform, because I think that's important.
Thank you. Mayor Pack?
Actually, I think Councilor McKenna. No? Okay. Well, thank you. I'm not sure how much more I can say than Councilor McGuire had said. I think it was good to be involved in the process and to understand some of the details and intricacies of this type of project. And honestly, I went through this was the last one I reviewed, and it was very refreshing. This one and one of the others, I think the DW, I think was really felt the vision, I thought, of what we had talked about before. And we'd seen, of course, the Bridge of Dreams from Princeton, and thought a lot of that. And this obviously reflects that. When I saw the pricing, it was very refreshing, considering I saw the pricing of the other ones first. I thought, oh boy, this is never going to happen. We're talking about $3.6 million. And as Councillor McGuire said, the additional add-on. So I think, and I'd love to have Ramin come in and even talk a little bit more detail about it, but the yellow cedar gulum, to build something that's going to last the next 100 years and to minimize the amount of maintenance that would be required on it, or make that investment up front, and it stands the test of time. Of course, we talked about the roofing system and the concern that there are some openings in the roof based on the first proposal, and by going with the double laminated timber roof, eliminates that. So birds can't go in there and nest, or even in there and sit. You wouldn't want birds sitting in there when you're trying to go in there and enjoy the space. I could live. I'm fine with either the first option or option two, whether it be the two span or the single span. I'm fine with either one. The merits, as Councillor McGuire indicated, for the single span is we're no longer relying on the center pier, and we know that if we do rely on that, there will be more maintenance going forward. Different times in the years to come, maybe beyond all of us, but there will be a cost to that, and probably significant cost. So if we can avoid that cost, it's making an investment now that stands the test of time. And I can support the second viewing platform for a very modest additional cost. It means we do have the viewing platforms on both sides of that bridge, and on a summer day you can sit out there in the water, the mist can go across your face, and just enjoy the space. And I think what we're building here is heritage. It's something that's going to stand the test of time, be a marquee feature in our community, and be there for the next 100 years plus. And from a price standpoint, I think you probably first anticipate somewhere in that range, I think, of where it would be, and it's right in there. And the fact that it is considerably lower than all of $1 million less than the other proponents, I think speaks to their ability to do this with the in-house team that they have. And I think they see an opportunity here to place a marquee feature in Eastern Canada. It'd be the first one in Eastern Canada, help I guess exhibit to the world what they're capable of doing for future projects. So I'll support everything Councillor McGuire said, and look forward to hopefully having this in place by next summer.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, staff, for the report, and council members who participated. I'm supportive of the recommendation from staff. I won't repeat. Councillor McGuire was quite eloquent in his putting forward the reasons why we don't need the center abutment. And I think for $30,000, this is our only chance to do it at that price point, to add the extra viewing platform. I'm fine. My question might be a separate report that will come from you, Director McMahon, in the future. I'm interested in a detailed work plan of removing what's there, the costing, and then the installation of this one, so that, not for tonight, but I do expect, unless you have it all mapped out, then that would be great. I'm very curious to know when we could get going.
Yeah, no, my apologies, and I should have covered that in my report. So the removal of the existing bridge is part and parcel to this price. It was part of the assignment and then documented in the RFP. We did have a couple of milestone dates that we tabled in the RFP for the proponents to meet. The one was to have the existing bridge removed by November something or other this fall. In having spoken to, we did follow up with StructureCraft after we reviewed the submissions, because we did have a couple of kind of technical questions, logistical questions that we wanted to ask, and the one being, would the bridge in fact have to be removed this fall, or could this be something that could wait until the spring of 2025? And they'd come back and said, well, we had intended on removing the bridge in the fall only because that was a milestone date that you wanted it removed this fall, but there are some, if they didn't have to mobilize to the site twice with cranes, that would be good for them. So they could defer the removal of the bridge until the spring, mobilize once, take the bridge out, set up, and place the new bridge. It should be noted that the StructureCraft is from British Columbia, and of course the Alaskan yellow cedar will be sourced obviously from Alaska and transported to British Columbia and manufactured in their indoor facility. Everything will be cut and treated, and then it will be shipped to Ontario and to Smith Falls and assembled on land and set on the new abutments. So there is some abutment work that they will get to this fall, new abutments behind the original canal wall, the masonry canal wall. So that's still a little bit up in the air. We'll work through those logistics. If we get an award here this evening, we could see the bridge removed this fall, or we may allow them to defer the removal until the spring. If nothing else, I know there was some interest to get the bridge removed this fall if we'd went at it on our own outside of a contract to replace the structure, just to demonstrate to the community that we're seeing some traction on this assignment and we see this project moving forward. Although I think if we get approval to proceed with StructureCraft and the bridge of choice here this evening, I think that in itself will suggest to the community that we've got some traction on this project now. We've entered into a contract with the proponent and we're moving ahead. Whether or not things start happening this fall with removal or next spring, I don't know that it really truly matters at that point.
So just have a follow-up. So then, thank you for that. That's great news that it's included in the price. The only other question was under consultation. I don't see Parks Canada mentioned there. Did they have they been kept in the loop? Not to say that this is their bridge, but it's over there, responsible for the waterway. So they're going to. I just don't want any surprises from our friends at Parks Canada.
Right, through the chair. Yeah, we've been working pretty closely with Ramin and myself, working with Parks Canada on this assignment. We've had a number of discussions with them. There is a federal basic impact assessment that needs to be completed. With the successful proponent, we'll have to work through that. I think that process will be fairly expeditious at this point. They're well aware that the town is looking at putting in a timber bridge, and they're supportive, to be quite honest. Some of the things that we do need to look at and consider with them, the lighting scheme that we're going to put on this bridge. I believe it will probably end up having to be something somewhat modest and not a lot of light bleed into the underlying water body. As we know, we have fish spawn and all that kind of stuff happening, so we'll have to be cognizant of that. But they'll review as we get through the detailed design. And like I said, the renderings here are great, but it's not a detailed design. There's a lot of engineering that needs to happen before we get to construction. And we'll work with Parks Canada once we know Perhaps maybe once we get to the 60% design stage, perhaps then we have that conversation with Parks Canada. But prior to that, we'll get working on the BIA, that Federal Basic Impact Assessment, to make sure that there's no hold up in this assignment. And I really, truly don't feel that there will be. Like I said, they're well aware, they're supportive. I think they'll expedite it as best that they can to make sure that this happens.
Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. And thanks to my colleagues who put in extra time on this. I appreciate your due diligence. Most of my questions have been answered. Your report was very thorough, and my colleagues were as well. Can the stone from the old water treatment plant be used in this bridge? Because that seems like a practical thing.
Through the chair, it's possible. I hadn't really given it any consideration. Keep in mind that the stone that will go on to the bottom of the cords of the arches will, I believe it will be a facade.
It will be real stone.
Yeah. So certainly something that we can investigate with StructureCraft. I wouldn't say yes or no at this particular point in time, but we can certainly look into it.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Chair, I would appreciate them going ahead this fall. I'm keen to get started on the project. I do support the staff recommendation. I'm fine with the second viewing platform as well. And unless we're going to see savings, which would be nice, I don't see a need to delay. If we're going to see significant savings by them only making one trip, that's great. If we're not going to save any money, let's get at it. So thanks for your work on this. I do support the recommendation as my colleagues did.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. I don't think there's anything left for me to comment on here. I think all the great comments have been made, except this gentleman here was fantastic. I've sat in on all kinds of projects, and he was just there to answer our questions. Paul was there to answer our questions. So it just made everything seem very right. Now, I will say, I do have concerns because this is a lot of money, and I keep thinking, there's lots of other things that we could spend that money on. But then that bridge has been sitting there looking just disgusting for how many years and not being used, and like it's awful. So this will be a great addition to the town. It really will. And then what we have to do as the town is figure out what we're going to do in around that area so we really showcase this. But having gone through all this work and listening to all the information that we got, and good, solid information, I feel very comfortable with this bridge. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you. So I'll put my T-Rex hat on, speak as a dinosaur. I mean, since this bridge closed in 2015, I always advocated for it to be replaced as is with vehicles on it. Of course, that wasn't council's decisions. I respect that. In March of last year, we talked about this, and I think we originally directed a steel concrete structure, and we're advised that, if we go wood, it's 30 to 40% more to do the wood, which I questioned at the time as well. So we have an $800,000 shortfall on this. And at the time, we talked about either pedestrian or vehicle. The hope was we would get grant funding. Now I'm reading in your report that that's highly unlikely now. So we'll have to eat the $800,000. And I'm just thinking, we have a water tower project of $25 million. I know the Director of Community Services has some grand plans for our parks, which is probably going to be upwards of 2 or 3. I think I added it up last time. If aspirational dreams come true. And then, of course, there's all the road work, the 60 kilometers of roads in town. So I'm not supportive of the extra money. And I'm happy that the bridge is going to be done, but I wouldn't do it this way. And my feeling is, and from the people that I know, who I know a lot of people, they don't feel it should be done this way either. So I'm not supportive.
Thank you. Mayor Paco.
Just one final question, just going back to, and sort of builds on Councilor Brennan's question. We submitted an application to the federal government for the Active Transportation Fund. Have we heard anything back regarding that?
Yeah, so the Active Transportation Fund is, that's closed.
Okay.
The expression of interest that we did submit was to the Greenwood program that's being facilitated through Natural Resources Canada. So we did hear back recently that our expression of interest was accepted, and we moved on to the next stage in the process, which is a full-on proposal. So myself and Ramin will be working on that over the next while to make sure that we get that in, hopefully in the next couple of weeks to a month or so. That could see funding for projects such as this to 50% of the costs. So it could possibly fund about half of the costs associated with this bridge. I'm not certain on on the timing of when. I believe it will take them some time to go through the proposals, much like many other funds and grants that come down the pipeline. They've already identified that they're oversubscribed, so that's no secret. So I'm sure they've got a lot of proposals that they're looking at. But I think to a point that I heard earlier that I think it was yourself, Mayor. There's not many, if any at all, bridges of this nature in this region of Canada, particularly Eastern Ontario. So I think that may bode well with the review folks from Natural Resources Canada. I would hope and think maybe perhaps they would want to see something like this be demonstrated in this region to promote, the use of timber and something that's greener. So that's our hopes. But anyway, so we put the expression of interest in, and like I said, we've advanced through that stage and we're on to the next stage. So fingers crossed. I'm not going to make any promises at this point. I don't want council to be disappointed if we end up getting nothing. But we're going to put our best foot forward and put as good a proposal in as we can.
Okay, well, thank you. At least we've advanced to the next stage. And like Councillor Quinn, I want to thank Ramin for your vision here too, because we were going down a different road, really. And even though we weren't all united, but we had a vision of potentially creating something that was more than a river crossing here. And I think with conversations that you had with Paul that sort of opened our eyes to what this could be. And I think we'll end up with something that is going to be very well received, not just from the community, but everybody driving by. I mean, it's going to be a real, feature within our community and give people an opportunity to enjoy that part of town the way they cannot enjoy it today. So thank you for the vision and your fortitude through this whole process.
But through the chair, I really wanted to express my gratitude to the council for the support, as well as I'm really humbled by the comments that I'm receiving from you folks. Hopefully, what I had in mind, what my firm and my colleagues had in mind would be to the best interest of the people in this beautiful community. As Paul mentioned, we did our best to put the financial consideration in mind. We applied towards this funding, and hopefully the timing and the process would be in favor of this project. I know that Greenwoods, they do have certain interest towards seeing timber bridges installed throughout Canada, and hopefully that would be acting in the best interest of this project, covering some cost. If there are any technical questions, by all means. And in terms of I'm not entirely sure if I should mention that, but anyways, in terms of the financial implications, just out of experience, recent experience, and again, you would excuse me if I'm not disclosing the exact project, exact municipality, but I can assure the council, if you were going to follow the same route that you had envisioned in March last year, the same type of structures, we had a similar project recently installed in one of the municipalities, Eastern Ontario, a bridge pretty much the same span, half the width, and not including a lot of additional work that you have, lighting, the approach, the roof, all those kind of stuff. It's not including that. And all the bids that came through they were about $1.5 million, except for one that was about 1.3. And I'm not entirely sure about the final cost associated with that project, but something that we've learned in this industry, we do not know what the results of the bid or the tender come through. Even for this one, as you've noted, a lot of them were in the range of $3 to $3.6 million. And I think that we're very, in a way, lucky to see that Structured Craft came with this wonderful price for this beautiful bridge. That's my opinion on that.
Thank you. Councilor Brennan, did you want to say anything else? Well, we know what the direction is, but I prepared something, so I've got to say it. While the installation of the new pedestrian bridge at Confederation Drive crossing was approved by council, and I like the look of it, I'm very concerned that the costs have exceeded the money that we set aside or had set aside by almost $1 million. And this is a significant increase to me, and it raises serious questions about prioritizing funds, especially in a town that is not flush with money and where many taxpayers are already struggling to meet their financial obligations. Careful budgeting and planning are essential to ensure that taxpayers' money is used efficiently and not stretched unnecessarily. At this time, the pedestrian crossing, while valuable, is not an urgent necessity compared with other pressing infrastructure needs. And I feel that we must focus on ensuring that immediate concerns such as road repairs, underground outdated infrastructure replacement, water systems, and essential public services receive the attention and the funding that they require. In my opinion, it's very important to reassess this project's timing and financial impact in light of broader community needs, especially given the current economic pressures on local residents. So just as a result of that, for me, I can't support it tonight. I'm not saying I don't support it. I just don't think I can do it at this time. Anyway, you've got your direction. It'll be coming on that. It'll be coming because we've got a majority of people in favor of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Now, let's go to 10.1 with Manager Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm bringing back the report related to the Smith Falls filming guide and application for council's consideration. We brought it forward at the last COW meeting, and request from council was to go back and review Mississippi Mills, their policy, to see if we should make any changes based on that. We did. I have not made any changes to the application or the policy. Staff felt that it was fairly consistent with what Mississippi Mills was doing and had some pluses in terms of the process and the number of pages and paperwork that would be involved. So I'm interested to hear what council has to say in terms of the policy and the application, and if you feel any further revisions need to be done.
Who'd like to start?
I'm fine.
Everybody's good? Thumbs up.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Item 10.2 with Manager Granke. Come on up, Carl. You're here for 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Staff are bringing forward a revision to the Rideau Heartland Centre Community Improvement Plan presented for Council's information and consideration. As part of our spring intake of the Community Improvement Plan, an application is submitted under Program 13. That's the Facade Improvement Program for 17 to 23 Beckwith Street. The application proposed a variety of changes to the 1980s era street front and highlighted by new roofing and new signage, and sought the $10,000 maximum available support under the program. Council deferred approval of the initial CIP application as they looked for the applicant to demonstrate improvements that were higher impact on the property, and invited the applicant to explore revisions to this application. The applicant has since updated a CIP application as part of the town's fall CIP intake, which was the only application received for this intake, and proposes to adjust the scope of work. The proponent is still proposing to remove the awning and place new signs at the front. However, he's no longer seeking CIP funding for this. He would develop the signs in accordance with the sign bylaw and obtain permits. The applicant still does propose to replace the shingles and proposes a steel roof that is ribbed in a manner similar to that of the old post office. The 3-paneled window above the door, along with the frame, would be replaced with a single window panel and the same aluminum frame. The box signs at the roof level would also be removed, and that was carried forward from the spring application. The applicant now also seeks funding to take a series of improvements to the ground level of the building, including replacing the tiles around the front step and entry, parging the foundation wall, sanding and repainting the railings, and planting 30 hydrangeas into the planting box that has sat unused for many years. And this long planting box is right at the street level along the front of the property. So the total works of this project at the 50% maximum that we can fund would be eligible for the $10,000 outlined in the CIP. The CIP Evaluation Committee reviewed the proposal and found in general the items for which funding was requested represent real and tangible improvements at the street level of the property, particularly relating to the ground floor interface. Noting the challenges with the building as a whole, it's certainly interesting architecturally compared to a lot of its neighbors. The Evaluation Committee recommended that Council supports the application and approves the requested funding for the property. So I'll leave it there and seek Council's final direction on that application.
Thanks, Carl. Any comments? Councilor Miller.
Thank you. So I emailed Manager Grenke on Friday. I'm a bit of a visual person, and so historically when we've had this conversation, there's been a rendering that has gone with it to help us really understand what work is to be happening here, and there has not yet been a rendering provided. So I guess I would ask that we defer this decision until we see the rendering, just to help me better understand what the vision is. So that's how I'm feeling about this one tonight.
Councilor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree with Councilor Miller's request for the rendering. I guess if we're clear on the roof material, that was the big one for me, that if it's going to be the type of roof they're specifying, that works for me, so I don't have as big of an issue with it. But what concerns me is the signs being removed from the report. I would hope that maybe in the spring or a future intake that the signs are included, because if the signs aren't going to be included in a future CIP, it kind of indicates that they're not going to follow the design guidelines that we're trying to get established. And I'm just hesitant to give all the money for this stuff if then they go and put up signs that are backlit or not suitable for the downtown core. But that being said, I think it's definitely an improvement what's brought tonight, and I'd be okay going ahead with it or going with the rendering depending on the consensus of the group.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor McCann.
Yeah, I'm ready to support the staff recommendation tonight. This is the third time we've, I think, looked at this file, so I'm ready to move forward as is. And if I understood correctly, they're going to follow the sign bylaw of the municipality when they get around to doing that. So that is how we can monitor that piece. So I'm ready to, I wish them well with the project.
Thank you. Councilor Brennan.
I agree. With Councilor McKenna, that is.
Anyone else? Mayor Packlet?
I would prefer to rendering, certainly to have an opportunity to see what it's going to look like. But I think what we're seeing, what's been described, I guess, is an improvement over what we had seen before. What concerns before. So the majority believes they're fine moving ahead. I'm fine moving ahead.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, I'm going to support it. So that's what's going to happen. It'll come up at the next council meeting. All right, and with you again, Carl, on heritage easement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My second report this evening relates to a request from the owner of the Gallipo Center property. As council is aware, the property is for sale, and there's an expectation and hope that the sale of the property would allow for the rejuvenation of the existing facility, as well as potentially accommodate new development on roughly 300 acres of vacant frame land that surrounds the former Rideau Regional Center complex. As a condition of the sale of the property, when the province sold the lands and the complex to a private owner around 2011, the heritage of the site would be enshrined in an easement agreement, which would be entered into between the owner and the Ontario Heritage Trust. Part 2 of the Ontario Heritage Act empowers the trust to enter into easement agreements to define and protect recognized heritage attributes on a property. And this is separate from the powers of designation under Parts 4 and 5 of the Act, which are under this jurisdiction of council, on which we've worked with a fair bit. The town has no role in administering or recognizing the heritage easement. That's strictly a matter between the parties. However, the existing OP policy and the development permit bylaw in effect do align with some of the intents and recognizes the broad parameters of the easement and the things that the easement has identified. This creates a somewhat unusual situation where the town has the authority to regulate land use and development under the Planning Act. However, the recognized heritage protections are, at this point, effectively administered by a separate administrative body. The proponent has found that the easement and conditions imposed therein have encumbered proposals to reuse and redevelop the site and create an economically viable development. While the Heritage Trust has indicated an openness to working with the proponents once a development concept is advanced, the inherent lack of certainty in a process such as this has been perceived to be a barrier to a commitment, thus creating a bit of a chicken and egg situation. A request has been made to remove the easement, and the owner seeks council support in principle for that action. The report this evening does not assess a critique on the Heritage Trust's practices or the philosophy that guides Part 2 of the Act. However, it finds that provincial land use planning policies and heritage protection legislation under Parts 4 and 5 of the Act give the town significant authority to establish strong land use planning and heritage protections as deemed appropriate by council. So if the easement is removed, that would not necessarily remove heritage protections. That would simply download the authority to council to undertake the consultations and determine a path forward. So the key question that we see is how decisions regarding heritage conservation should be made here as part of a coordinated planning effort to define and manage the future of the site, and who should be making those. If council supports this request, a draft wording that can go into a resolution is outlined in the report, and that would be conveyed to the province. This is, of course, non-binding. The action would be taken by our friends at the province, or not, but there would no doubt be a process there, and it would be taken under advisement. So with that in mind, we'll seek council's direction on next steps, if any.
Thanks, Carl. Councilor Brennan.
Thank you, Carl. Just so I understand, we do a resolution requesting the Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism to remove the easement. It's up to them to remove the easement?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. The easement is defined under Part 2 of the Ontario Heritage Act, there would be a provincial process, potentially an order in council. I'm not exactly sure the steps that would be taken, but it would be by them. Council's resolution would not be binding on anybody.
And through the chair, Carl, how was the easement originally established? Was it through council or was it through the ministry?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the easement was established as a condition of the sale of the property. So the province had identified heritage significance with the Rideau Regional Centre property, and as a condition of the sale to the property owner, that was a requirement that be enshrined through that process and carried forward. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not sure if council was consulted with at that time, but to the best of my knowledge, we did not have a statutory role there.
Okay, thank you. And just finally, I support this. And so I guess the easement was established when the Galapos bought the property from the province, and the province put that as a condition. So I support this. I'm really excited that there's someone interested in that particular property. And I don't see any reason for us not to recommend to the minister to remove the easement.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Carl. Coincidentally, I was a little bit late because I actually was in town. Minister Calandra was in town. We did a tour of 44 chambers. We took him to a couple other places to see, and they dropped me off here. But I mentioned this was coming forward tonight, and he plays an important role in this, of course, as a Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing being quickly needed in the province and certainly in our community. We know that, it's going back. I mean, I think there was probably certain intention to protect the regional center at the time in the architectural design, the features, the entrance, and the parts that are governed by this heritage easement. But I don't think it was fully understood what a barrier it could stand to future development of that property. And over the last 12, 13 years, we've seen a fair amount of development there, but I think it's also been impeded by this heritage easement. And when we look at the future needs of our community for growth, not just residential growth, but residential, commercial, industrial, institutional, I think this is the biggest parcel of land available in town, and really the next frontier when it comes to so much development. And I truly believe, and from numerous conversations, that the easement is a barrier today. And so I mentioned to the minister this coming forward today, and I said, I mean, in an ideal world, municipally, we determine the heritage assets in our community. We know our community. We know what we want to designate as properties of interest or place a heritage designation on something. And so we should have the autonomy within us. We understand the needs and growth and trying to balance all the responsibilities. So this, I think this is an opportunity for us to potentially work with the province to have this either removed or changed to ensure that future development can happen at the Galloway Centre. And this is a mechanism that I think with our support will help us get where we need to be. So obviously fully supportive and great to see it coming forward tonight, Carl.
Thank you. Councilor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to start off with, I'm really frustrated that this would come to council without the MHC knowing. And it's time and time again, it shows, whether we're putting Christmas lights on the town hall or whether there's so many examples of the last two terms of where the MHC gets bypassed. And it's really frustrating that it doesn't seem to click that with staff, that there's a committee of volunteers in the town that really care about this stuff, that really want to contribute and really want to be a part of these conversations. So, and it just goes to show, because the committee requested a report on this last December, we've had no follow-up from staff, and then it shows up on tonight's agenda. So it's very disappointing to come up this way. We have a meeting tomorrow night. It could have been on tomorrow night's agenda, but it's not. And I think the problem with just taking away the easement is that if we look at heritage easements in Ontario, it's the last tool that hasn't been gutted by the Ford government's changes to the Ontario Heritage Act, to the planning rules, which makes it ask you why did they put this in place in the first place? Why was this a condition of sale in the Galloway Centre? Why was it a condition of sale for all of, I think there were 7 similar facilities across the province? Because it represents a significant cultural, historical, societal time and place that we need to remember, that we don't necessarily need to celebrate, but we need to remember it. And if we just take off the easement, it's carte blanche to go in with a bulldozer and push the whole thing down to the ground. I don't disagree that the easement has been an impediment to development, and I don't think that heritage should be an impediment to the development. And I think if we look at how our heritage committees worked with the Rideau Hotel or the old post office, there's lots of examples where we've really worked together to get great development. But to say that we're just going to remove the easement without a designation to take its place, without any kind of due diligence, consultation, it's irresponsible for us to lobby the province on something that we haven't done our due diligence on, that we haven't done our homework with. So yes, we need to change something here to get more houses built and get that site redeveloped. Is recommending to the province that the easement just gets taken away and we don't replace it with a heritage designation or some kind of agreement that's going to say we want this building preserved, we want this aspect preserved, because I don't think anybody in town wants to see that bulldozed into the ground and sent to the dump. So that is what we're proposing tonight with this motion, and there's no way I would ever support that. So
thank you. Councilor McKenna.
Well, I'm going to support staff recommendation and I'm not suggesting that it's a carte blanche after. There's a whole planning process and designation process. But if we want that, that will happen at the local level with local sensitivities rather than Toronto telling us how to manage that site. I'm not saying it would be by supporting it, the request that would be just bulldozed and it's a carte blanche. I didn't read that here. That's not what I'm intending by supporting it. I think the local heritage committees, our own policies are better suited to manage that than the province. So I'm very supportive of getting going on this and getting that request into the ministry.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I think I have more questions than answers here after all of this conversation, because I do see a memo here to the Municipal Heritage Committee. So that was one of my questions. My other question was, is heritage easement and heritage designation the same thing? And I think we're getting that confused. Full disclosure, I rented an apartment at the Gallipoe Centre for a few years, and I know the treasure that building holds. I don't want to see the whole thing demolished. I think there's parts of that tell a big story about our past, and I wouldn't want to see the whole thing come down. So I have some concerns about this, and I think I'm not feeling completely educated on this, and I'm not sure I'm getting there tonight. So Councillor McGuire left me with more questions, and I guess if you wanted to answer any of what he said, that might help me. Do we not have any designation? What is that process if we remove this whole easement, and could we remove part of it instead of all of it? So just kind of at a loss here.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the heritage easement is not under the custodianship of council. It is a process. It is an agreement between the Heritage Trust and and under Part 2 of the Act, between the Ontario Heritage Trust and the owner. So the other properties that we have in downtown or throughout the town, mostly in the downtown area, that are designated, those are designated under a different section of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that's where council has the authority to pass the bylaw, identify the attributes that are significant and that need to be protected. The bylaws that we adopt contain a lot of the same language that are in the heritage easement, including identifying the attributes that need to be protected, as well as sort of a statement of the character and the significance, and certainly there is history associated with the property, and the easement identifies a lot of architectural and associative value in there. So I think if the easement were to be removed by the province, and I'm not suggesting that that's something that's going to happen immediately, perhaps not even quickly, I'm not sure, but I think that would certainly council would direct we welcome council's direction in terms of the next steps, including liaising with the Municipal Heritage Committee for advice on how do we proceed. Do we proceed with the designation, perhaps depending on the overall orientation and development of the site? If it's subdivided to many pieces, maybe there's merit in a district. I'm not sure, but those are conversations that would certainly, we'll take council's lead in consulting with MHC and with others as to what the approach that council would like to see with the property and using the tools under the Heritage Acts that are ascribed to the municipality for protecting.
Just to follow up then. So was this memo then sent to the Heritage Committee in December?
The memo that was attached to through you, Mr. Chair, the memo that was attached to the report was presented to the Municipal Heritage Committee in December, and that provided just a broader summary of the planning and legislative context of this property. It's a very unique property from a statutory perspective. It has a different the development permit bylaws is different from zoning that applies to the property, but also with the easement as distinct from a municipal designation. So what we'd provided to the Heritage Committee was just an overview of the fairly unique planning and protective context that exists on that property and really no other property in town.
Thanks, Carl. CAO Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to augment Mr. Grenke's response, the memo to the MHC was a courtesy. A Part 2 under the Act is beyond the mandate of the MHC. I want to make that clear. It's not within their mandate to comment on a provincial easement. It was done as a courtesy and an educational opportunity to understand how a heritage easement works. I would like to say, and so there was no disrespect in not bringing this to the Heritage Committee. It just, they don't have authority or a mandate for this type of Part 2 under the Act. As a courtesy, Mr. Grenke did send this report to the chair of the MHC to advise her that it was coming forward, again, as a courtesy. But I think there is an opportunity, as Carl has pointed out, for more of a dialogue, and I think that's why we laid the groundwork early, was to understand the distinction between a Part 2 and a Part 5, is it?
Or
Part 4, which is under the direction and the authority of council. So I think it's very important to understand the distinction between the two. And this decision tonight this is simply supporting or recommending that changes be made to it. But I think there will be lots of opportunity to have a dialogue if the province goes in that direction to ostensibly provide more control and put it within the mandate of the MHC if that's what council wants to do. So there was no disrespect in not taking this to MHC. It's beyond their mandate. I want to make that clear.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. A lot of information here tonight, really. But I'll tell you one thing that I truly feel, if we don't get something moving on that property pretty soon, we're not going to have to worry because it's going to cave in. So there won't be any property there to do anything with. So let's get moving. Let's get what we can and still have the town be able to eventually guide what does happen out there. I totally believe that that is a great building. I would hate to see it bulldozed, but I know right now, I know people that are out there, and I know roofs that are majorly leaking. When you get a roof majorly leaking, it doesn't take long for the building to deteriorate. So we need to get moving on this. So Carl, I'm looking to you for the direction. You've come forward with this, so I will support you on this recommendation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Petticoat.
Yeah, my final comments are going to be along those lines. I mean, this property's been for sale for a number of years. It's currently under power of sale as well. And it hasn't sold. And the Galvo family is doing what they can to keep it maintained. But even after owning it for the last 13 years roughly, still only about 25% they've been able to occupy. So a lot of building there, which has been sitting vacant for an awful long time. And the cost of maintenance is exceptional. And the ability to do that it's just not practical to be able to maintain the whole property, the whole building. There's been any further development beyond the ring road, and that would come in time. But we see the nurses' residence, which is just completely derelict. It's designated, as I understand, under this heritage easement, but in no way recoverable, as I understand it. And the reality is that I think as long as this easement stands as a barrier to any future use of the property, a sale may not occur, and we will see the demolition of the property as it eventually would, parts of it start to fall in within itself. And, we don't need that happening. We don't need a property that would become even more derelict and stands more barriers to redevelopment. And this is an opportunity that we've had through discussions with our MPP and I say with Minister Calandra. There's been efforts in the past to try to get the province to make some changes here, and Ontario Heritage Trust to make some changes. It's not been successful at this point, but I think we have to keep trying. Otherwise, we will see a big white elephant out there in many ways. And we know we have people living out there, we have businesses out there, and we need to do what we can to ensure that this is sustainable. And this is a big step in ensuring that it is sustainable.
Thank you. And last but not least, Councilor
Thanks,
McGuire.
Mr. Chair. I've got two questions on heritage designation. The first is, what's the minimum amount of time and the average amount of time for Smith Falls to designate a property under the Ontario Heritage Act? And roughly like a 6 month, a year, 2 years, or?
Yeah. So I haven't, it's, through Mr. Chair, that's a difficult question to answer because there's so many properties that have so much complexity in terms of whether the owner is in agreement with the designation, how much council wishes to proceed. I would suggest for properties such as this that has a significant degree of complexity, we may wish to explore getting potentially recruiting a heritage consultant to assist with providing MHC and council some strong advice on what we'd want to go in a designation bylaw. There's a process and time that would happen there. It's typically usually, if all things go well, it would be at least certainly a number of months, potentially longer, depending on how the consultation and the process goes. I don't think we've been in this situation. Fastest designation can come together, I'd imagine, would be, we haven't been in that situation. If a property were immediately threatened with demolition, then potentially all hands would go on deck if that was something that council wanted to proceed with, and dialoguing with the Municipal Heritage Committee. In a situation like this, with a property of this degree of complexity, it's difficult to really forecast how long that would take. Certainly, we'd want to get it done right and talk to the people who we need to talk to and leverage the significant amount of knowledge that exists within this community about the history of the property. So unfortunately, I can't give an example that would sort of forecast how long that might work in this property if that's the direction that council would want to proceed on.
Thanks. And through the chair, my second question is, if the heritage easement wasn't in place and a demolition permit was received by the town tomorrow, is there any planning tools in place that would stop a full demolition of the site?
So assuming, through you, Mr. Chair, assuming all other applicable law was satisfied, and actually even with the designation, with the heritage easement, I think that would be a conversation as to whether that an agreement under Part 2 of the Heritage Act is applicable law, which would encumber a building official from issuing a demolition permit. That would need to be reviewed, but otherwise, I'm not aware of any planning policies or any planning or Heritage Act provisions that would preclude the demolition of the site tomorrow if an application were received and there were no easement in place. I think if the easement as a contractual obligation between the owner and the trust, I think obviously we would need to do some searching there to determine what our obligations are, as we're not a party to that agreement. But I think that would be the situation as I'd see it should an application come in.
Okay, thanks. So that to me answers everything we need to know. It is a carte blanche. It's not hyperbole. It's not misinformation. It's a carte blanche to demolish everything. And we take years to designate properties. We've never done a property in Smith Falls in under a year. So to say that we can write this to the province that says remove, it doesn't say change, it says remove in our resolution as proposed. It's ludicrous. So if we want to talk about strictly the mandate of this council doesn't have any mandate with the Heritage Act and heritage easements. We've got no business commenting on something that we haven't even done our homework on. And if we want to talk about mandates again, the difference between the mandate under the Ontario Heritage Act and the mandate we've given our Municipal Heritage Committee with the terms of reference that's been approved by council are two very different things. And I think this is well in the scope of the terms of reference of the Municipal Heritage Committee as approved by council. And I think just to kind of give just to explain where the frustration comes from here is you see the heritage pedestals around town, right? We spend a significant portion of our budget on these heritage pedestals, and they didn't last as long as they were supposed to, and the quality of material didn't work the way they were supposed to, and there's pedestals failing. So staff come and they say to the committee, we have this new money set aside. We're going to redo some pedestals. What does the committee think? And the committee says, well, you know, we need to do better building materials. We need to research the design. We need to look into this more. And then staff say to the committee, well, we've actually already paid someone to do it. We were just looking for a rubber stamp here. We're doing it anyway. So it's this kind of stuff where it's, you know, when something like this that's big, to me, this is a big deal. It's the only heritage easement in Smith Falls. It's one of very few heritage easements in Eastern Ontario. The province didn't just do this willy-nilly, and to pretend that there's bureaucrats in Toronto that are maliciously acting on our small communities is silly. So we don't know why. We don't know what to replace this with. We don't know how to develop the property while maintaining the character. And if the province was to remove this today, a demolition permit could come in tomorrow and the whole thing's in the dump. So I think it's silly to accept this tonight. I think it's silly the way it was brought to council, and I hope that it can be deferred, and in no way I would ever support this. So thank you.
And the last person to talk, Councillor McKenna.
I'm still very much in favor of removing the easement. And through you, Mr. Chair, the building couldn't be torn down tomorrow if the easement was lifted. There are a number of people living there, all kind of notice, and there's all sorts of bureaucratic, and I'm sure, and I also know that whoever is interested in buying it is going to have a conversation about zoning. We're short of housing land. This is important land that needs to be developed while respecting some of the heritage, but the building will, I have no fear whatsoever that the minute that the easement is lifted, if the province decided to, that the building will be demolished. I have confidence in the process that we could find a happy compromise. You just can't throw and bulldoze people that are in their homes. It takes probably longer than it takes to get a heritage designation. So I'm ready to move ahead with this important file. More information will come. There's more process to this. We're offering our advice to the province. And by doing that, we're letting both the potential buyer know and the province know that there's another way of doing this process without so many restrictions. So I'm ready to move forward.
Thank you. Well, you've got your direction. The majority of council is in favor. Okay, 10.4, the Bellamy Farm Phase 3 pre-servicing.
My final report this evening seeks Council's authorization to enter into a pre-servicing agreement with Parkview Homes to regularize and administer the initial development of linear infrastructure and public works within the subdivision lands in advance of final approval of Phase 3 of the subdivision and conveyance of these lands to the town. In a subdivision approval process, the final approval and subdivision agreement prescribes certain obligations that the developer must fulfill, including the construction of the roads, sewers, and other associated infrastructure such as stormwater management facilities. These obligations are spelled out in a subdivision agreement, and the developer advances securities covering the cost of the works, which is then returned once the works are completed. This is important because the town will eventually assume and maintain these works, so we want to ensure they're built to our standard. In the event that the developer wishes to do this work before final approval, they assume all risk associated with that. However, sometimes it is in their interests to start the work depending on workload and supply considerations or financial preferences. Ultimately, the more of this that would get done first would reduce the amount of securities they need to provide at the time of the subdivision agreement and registration. In this case, the proponent has asked the town to enter into the pre-servicing agreement, which provides a greater degree of certainty for both the developer and the town, spells out insurance requirements, the role of the engineering in verification. Town staff and the developer have negotiated the terms of the agreement, which would administer the terms of the infrastructure works on the subdivision, and ultimately the requirements of the pre-servicing agreement would carry forward into the subdivision approval once that's obtained. So staff recommend that council passes a bylaw authorizing the execution of a pre-servicing agreement to administer the work that the developer is looking to undertake in advance of subdivision approval on Phase 3 lands.
Everybody in agreement? Perfect. Well, this will be coming forward as well. Thank you, Carl. All right, 10.5, a draft encampment protocol report with Director Clark.
Excuse me.
Good evening. So I'm here before you this evening bringing forth this protocol on encampments in municipal land. And while we have seen an increase in the underhoused and homeless individuals seeking alternative shelter, I would just confirm that we are not overrun. This is not a mass problem that we're seeing in our parks and green space facilities, but this is preparatory. I was asked by Chief Empey to take a look at this, and Chief Cheeseborough. So this is my best effort at an encampment protocol. We are not experiencing, as I said, large numbers of individuals living and sleeping rough in our public spaces at this time, although they do exist. This protocol is intended to signal our approach, which is intended to be one of consistency, first and foremost, and compassion. We are also, I'm presenting it before you for information, and I'm asking you to receive it as such.
Comments, questions? Councilor Miller?
Just a quick question. Thank you for your work on this. It's important given what's happening in neighboring communities. Will our designated municipal lead or other town staff that are involved have any special training in advance of implementing this?
So through the chair, vis-a-vis training, our staff are regularly trained to engage in with individuals in the general public, which can have a wide range of experiences. So while they will not be specifically trained to deal with encampments, the intention is that they're not going to be intervening. So for an example, if the Parks and Recreation staff see something in a park in, say, Lower Reach or something, they'll advise myself, and then we will make a connection and call the appropriate resource. The intention is not for us to engage or intervene. It's to see those individuals who are needing help and provide support as best we can, which is often connecting them with the individuals and the organizations that are trained to do that.
Thank you.
Councilor McKenna.
Thanks for the report. Proactive is good. I like the idea that it's a protocol and not a strict policy, because each situation, but it gives you some parameters to work within that will help guide it. And the underpinning is we want to help individuals who are in that situation. We're not here to punish people. So that's our first approach. So I'm supportive of it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Supportive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Done. And last but not least, Andrew Crowder on the Community Grants Program Update Report.
Good evening again, through you, Mr. Chair. The report before you is a revised version of our community grants policy. Staff engaged council as well as the community as part of a public consultation session that happened on September 3rd. That was facilitated through Eric Lockhart, who was a facilitator. He did a great job. We received a lot of great comments from the community and stakeholders as part of the update to this revision. So that's what staff is bringing to council, hopefully for adoption. We would like to be able to get this out in order to maintain the November intake like we have before. So staff outlined a number of the changes that were made as part of this, as well as some of the discussion or some of the suggestions or recommendations that were not included and the reasons for that. Some of those include the in-kind supports as well as multi-year funding. So I'm interested to hear council's feedback and if we feel that any further revisions are required as part of this.
Councilor Brennan.
Thank you, and I was able to attend that session. It was really good, and I did a lot of listening. And I see you've incorporated some of the suggestions. And the one, I guess, common one was the in-kind, especially for community groups. So I guess it just seemed it seems a little bureaucratic. I know you want to track the value of the support that the event or the group is getting. It just seems like to them that it's taken away from their total package, and then I guess it's over and above any support. And then someone mentioned Carlton Place. It's just providing the in-kind as a further show of support. The other one was the comment was made about groups that haven't been incorporated for 2 years, we know of one, of course, and it was described to me as being sort of an onerous process to do, and also costly. So I see that still in there. So hopefully there's some discretion there, because I think that group has been around for more than 2 years. They just took that time to get incorporated. So other than that, you've captured the comments that were made that I heard, and you had great interest in it. And so hopefully going forward, the stakeholders that we've talked to are going to be happy with this.
Anyone else? I just want to say I also attended that, and I agree. There was a lot of questions, and you did incorporate some of them. So I'm going to support it. It looks like you got a thumbs up. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have or do we have any committee, board, and external organization updates? Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple. I had the pleasure of participating with REAL at the mini forest with town staff and probably 50 or 60 volunteers putting in 350 trees Saturday morning. And I do want to note there was at least 3 neighborhood families came with their children, and the high school came with a class, teachers. So it was very much a community event, topped off by town staff putting on a nice barbecue for everyone. So it was great. And I don't know, I'm not going to speak to the mayor, but I just want to congratulate the mayor and Stephanie on the National Indigenous Day opening the Healing Garden. It was just a perfect evening. It was so well done and organized. The mood and the feeling, it was just a lovely, important evening. So congratulations, Your Worship, on your leadership on that. Also, just want to report on the Old Home Week Committee's been meeting. We were meeting monthly. We're going to every 2 weeks now. And we've had terrific response to our fundraising / sponsorship. It's going very, very well. I'm not at liberty to say what the number is yet, but there will be an announcement. And it's shaping up to be a terrific week. With my public health hat on, flu shots are available now. Get them. COVID vaccinations will be available shortly for the public. And finally, I see that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario is holding a Healthy Democracy Forum October 19th to 20th. And the goal is to get more people voting in municipal elections, to get more diverse people running in municipal elections. And we're a couple of years out, so it's terrific forum. I hope Smith Falls could be represented there to bring back some of that information, because it would be terrific to have a wonderfully diverse slate of candidates in the next municipal election, and to have way better than 38% turnout to vote in the next election. So those are my updates.
Anyone else? Okay. We have no information listed for correspondence items, no notices of motions. So could I get a motion for adjournment? Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Quinn, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:28 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. All in favor?
2-minute recess.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're just pulling up a revised council agenda with all the wording on it.
Okay.
So you'll have it, but maybe I'll print it out. Yeah, can you get your email?
Yeah, good with
Okay. Fine.
Good evening, welcome back to this meeting of Smith Falls Town Council for Monday, October 7th, 2024. On October 7th, 2024, we acknowledge the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We're also grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We're mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So we have a number of amendments to the agenda that were added from committee of the whole meeting a minute ago, including items 9.1, 9.2, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, 10.5, and that's it, I guess. So a busy evening for business here. We'll get things formalized and started with approval of the agenda. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that the October 7th, 2024 regular council meeting agenda be approved as amended.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Miller and seconded by Councillor Quinn that the October 7th, 2024 regular council meeting agenda be approved circulated as amended. Sorry. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Ask for disclosure of any monetary pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest, general nature thereof. Yes, Councillor Miller.
I have a conflict with 10.1, the community grants policy, as my employer will be applying for a grant.
Okay. Anybody else? No. Ask approval of the minutes of previous meeting. Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that the minutes of the September 3rd, 2024 and September 23rd, 2024 council meetings be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor McKenna that the minutes of September 3rd, 2024 and September 23rd, 2024 council meetings be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, council reports. Reports. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Your Worship. I attended a gathering at the Railway Museum of Eastern Ontario on September the 27th. It was the Eastern Ontario Rail Trail Project. Nicole Whiting is the executive director. She led the meeting. And Tony Humphrey was on hand, and he gave a tour of the museum and told the history, which was very interesting because there was about 40 people there, and I would say half of them had never been to the museum before. So this was really interesting. This trail project is to create a loop of the trails in Eastern Ontario. And the Railway Museum is definitely a hub. Smith Falls is definitely a hub. So what a great place to really get this going. Now they're going to be looking for financial support from the municipalities. But you know, that's something that will come. The next meeting is going to be in November, and Manager Crowder will be letting us know more about that. And I believe it's being held here in Smith Falls. And we ended the evening off with good conversation and delicious food that was provided by DeLuca here on Russell Street in Smith Falls. So it was a very interesting meeting, something that we've talked about for a long time, getting all these trails connected. And I do know that we do have some talk here in Smith Falls where we're trying to build a trailhead for the Cataraqui Trail, but that could be a trailhead for this whole loop eventually. So it was very positive. As we have more meetings today. Thank you.
Super. Thank you for attending, participating. Councillor Brennan?
Just quickly on yesterday, I attended the Heritage Fun Fair at the Heritage House Museum. About 250 people, and my friend and colleague Gary Lackey and I barbecued about 200 hot dogs and hamburgers. But it was a great day and beautiful day, and thanks to all the volunteers and the staff.
Thank you. Anyone else? A couple of reports myself. September 24th, I and I guess most of the leadership team participated in our annual emergency preparedness training. And this is something we go through as a management emergency management group. And so it's a tabletop exercise, and it just reinforces the preparedness of the community should a disaster happen. And frankly, I guess when we look at Hurricane Helene, which hit so many areas of the U.S., 400 kilometers inland from where the hurricane initially hit, and the impact, we always have to understand that we're not necessarily insulated from serious disasters, whether natural or man-made. And the training process we went through was actually, if tornadoes had hit town, how would we deal with that? So I think it was one, from my perspective, very positive in knowing we've got a great group of people who are knowledgeable and trained and well able to deal with things when they happen. And two, going through the exercise helps identify gaps in what we could do in the future to try to be better. So it was a great exercise. We go through it on a regular basis annually, and it's nice to be part of that. As Councillor McKenna mentioned in Committee of the Whole, a number of us attended the National Day of Truth Reconciliation ceremony on September 30th, and I think it was a very heartfelt ceremony. I think it was nice to have Tim Basayan sharing his own personal experiences as a grandchild of residential school survivors, and of course the unveiling of the Healing Circle. And so thanks to Director Clark and additional staff who were involved in organizing this event and bringing the Healing Circle into the community. And I had an opportunity to speak to an Indigenous gentleman afterwards, and he mentioned how grateful he was to have this in the community. And he's had some challenges in his life, and he said where he feels best is within the Healing Circle, that quickly, that it's making an impact in our community. So thanks, Director Clark, for your leadership in pulling this together, and I think it's going to be very well received. On the 2nd, some may be aware, we had a press conference in town with the mayors of the Rideau Corridor represented. 5 of us were there, others were there in spirit, essentially to express our concerns with regards to PSPC Canada, Public Service and Procurement Canada's actions in putting in a fixed bridge at the side of the LaSalle Causeway in Kingston. That bridge is now back in place, and we believe it is a barrier to potential navigation to the Rideau system next year. So we attended a Zoom with PSPC Canada about 2 weeks earlier, and they explained that their plan is to put this fixed bridge in place. It's going to be removed twice in October, I think October 15th and November 16th, to allow boating traffic through. But the process they have to move this fixed bridge out of place is to bring a barge underneath it, lift it up, move it away for 9 hours, and then bring it back in place. And our position is that they can do better, and they need to do better, because we know that a lot of the larger boaters are making their plans right now for the 2025 season. We heard from the Great Loop Association, which is a group of U.S. boaters who generally come up through the Great Lakes, through Lake Ontario into the Rideau Canal, and enjoy that Rideau Canal experience throughout the summer. They told us they have 300 boaters who are planning to come next summer, but right now are stalled because PSPC Canada needs approval from the Minister of Transport to shut off navigation to the waterway. And those 2 dates in October and November were consented by the previous Minister of Transport federally. There's a new Transport Minister, Anita Anand, who is now taken over that portfolio due to the resignation of Minister Rodriguez. And she has yet to provide any consent for the bridge to close marine navigation for next season. We assume it's coming because the bridge is in place. We respect the needs of the Kingston community to have that crossing. It's vitally important. But our position is it needs to be open more frequently, and it needs to be open for a longer period of time. If you're a boater coming down the Rideau and you want to make sure you can get through there, a 9-hour window is not going to be enough. When you've got locks to deal with and all kinds of challenges along your route. So we would like to see Mr. Anand and PSPC Canada and Mr. Duclos work together to provide a solution that meets the needs of everybody, all stakeholders. And of course, our worry is the impact it has on our tourism-related businesses throughout our community, up and down the Rideau Corridor. Many who are still trying to recover from a pandemic and having impaired revenues for an indefinite period of time. may leave some people with a lack of an ability to carry on with business and unfortunately probably some closures. We did follow up with a letter to Minister Anand, just reminding her of what we had sent to Mr. Duclos. We were fortunate that MPs, both the two ridings bordering the Rideau, Barrett and Reid, actually both hand-delivered our letter to the Minister Duclos in Parliament. So he's well aware of our concerns, and we simply want to make sure that they can balance that in. Whether that means opening the bridge every weekend, or that means putting in a bridge which actually could open as well. That is a possibility we understand from some of the people we've talked to. But anyway, the press conference was there to try and help create some awareness and make sure that the federal government knows this is a deep concern of us. And that's it for my reports. I've got a couple other notes and announcements. Fire Prevention Week, and I'll have a proclamation on that shortly, but over 4,500 pamphlets were delivered to residents reminding them to check their smoke alarms. Fire Prevention Officer Jason Smith was interviewed by Kathy Botham and Robbie Hall on Your TV. Fire drills will be conducted at local schools. Vulnerable occupancy checks will be done. Scouts will be coming to the fire hall to visit and learn about fire safety. Fire Prevention Officer Smith will be out in Leonard County Housing to conduct smoke alarm and safety inspections as well on their properties. So great to have our fire service so actively involved in Fire Prevention Week, and thanks to Fire Prevention Officer Smith for his leadership on that. Also, Local Government Week is October 20th to 26th, and on October 21st, council members will be attending SFDCI to meet students and discuss the role of elected officials, staff, discuss some current events in Smiths Falls. Students will be able to interact with council members, ask some questions about the town, current projects, the role of municipal officials, etc. I think we're all hoping we can be there and enjoy the day with the students. On October 22nd, many of us will plan to be lacing out our skates and holding a free public skate at the Memorial Community Center from 5 to 6 p.m. Some staff, some local fire and police service should be there as well, just as part of Local Government Week. And I've got a number of proclamations, so please bear with me. First one is Rett Syndrome Awareness Month. Whereas Rett syndrome is a rare neurodevelopmental condition that affects mainly females, 1 in 10,000, and is caused by a mutation in the X chromosome. Whereas individuals with Rett syndrome will lose some, if not most, acquired skills, including speech, gross motor skills, and fine motor skills. Some never develop the ability to walk or even talk. Whereas there is currently no cure, but advancements in treatment and research provide thousands of people with hope. And whereas the Ontario Rett Syndrome Association is a volunteer, nonprofit charity for parents, caregivers, researchers, medical professionals, and other interested support agencies and individuals. Whereas the OSRA exists to ensure that children and adults with Rett syndrome are enabled to achieve their full potential and enjoy the highest quality of life within their community. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smiths Falls, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Rett Syndrome Awareness Month in the Town of Smiths Falls. As well, World Mental Health Day, October 10th, 2024. Whereas World Mental Health Day is October 10th, 2024. And whereas this year's campaign is Mental Health at Work. Whereas unhealthy conditions, including stigma, discrimination, and exposure to risks like harassment and other poor working conditions, can pose significant risks affecting mental health, overall quality of life, and consequently participation or productivity at work. And whereas a supportive work environment fosters mental health, providing purpose and stability. Whereas employers should apply reasonable accommodations to support workers with mental health conditions in the workplace. Whereas governments, employers, and representative organizations must work together to create policies that prevent mental health risks, promote well-being, and build supportive workplaces where mental health is prioritized. Now therefore be resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smiths Falls, do hereby proclaim October 10th, 2024 as World Mental Health Day in the Town of Smiths Falls. And Circular Economy Month, where Circular Economy Month is Canada's public awareness campaign dedicated to educating and empowering Canadians to support an economy that delivers the most important values of Canadians, protecting the planet and prioritizing people. And whereas since 2001, hundreds of organizations from Yellowknife to St. John's proclaim Waste Reduction Week in Canada and more recently Circular Economy Month. Whereas by making a public declaration, we are committing to take action to support our natural resources, protecting the environment, supporting local economies, and safeguarding the well-being of your community. Climate change cannot wait any longer. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smith Falls, do hereby declare our support for the Canadian circular economy and proclaim October 2024 as Circular Economy Month in the Town of Smith Falls. And final, as mentioned earlier, Fire Prevention Week, October 6th to 12th, 2024. Whereas since 1922, the National Fire Protection Association has sponsored the public observance of Fire Prevention Week. Whereas during Fire Prevention Week, children, adults, and teachers learn how to stay safe in case of fire, and firefighters provide life-saving public education in an effort to drastically decrease casualties caused by fires. Whereas Fire Prevention Week is observed each year during the week of October 9th in commemoration of the Great Chicago Fire, which began on October 8, 1871, and caused devastating damage. This horrific conflagration killed more than 250 people, left 100,000 homeless, destroyed more than 17,000 forest structures, and burned more than 2,000 acres of land. And whereas this year's Fire Prevention Week campaign, Smoke Alarms, Make Them Work for You, strives to educate everyone about the importance of having working smoke alarms in the home. Now therefore be resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smith Falls, do hereby proclaim October 6th to 12th, 2024 as Fire Prevention Week in the Town of Smith Falls. And that's it for proclamations. We have a consent agenda with Councillor Quinn, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller that items in the consent report number 11-2024 received from the clerk be received and adopted.
Thank you. Over to Clerk Costello.
Thank you, Mayor Panko. The one item this evening on the consent agenda is a resolution by council to for the provincial updates to the Municipal Elections Act that was discussed at the Committee of the Whole meeting last week.
And for any further discussion? I'll read the motion. Moved by Councillor Quinn, seconded by Councillor Miller, for the items in consent report 11-2024 received from the clerk, received and adopted. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Into our regular business, Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls select Structure Craft's proposal of a clear span shallow arch with value-added Alaskan yellow cedar glue-M, dowel laminated timber roof system, and a second viewing platform for upstream, as well as superstructure arch lighting for the design of the timber bridge replacing the out-of-service Confederation Drive River crossing.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor?
Yeah, so I won't take Councillor McKenna's thunder for the contract award later, but this motion is to add some value-added parts. The clear span shallow arch adds a cost of $55,700, and that eliminates the need for the middle abutment, which will save us money in maintaining that over the lifespan of the crossing. The Alaskan yellow cedar glue-M is a more durable substance that will last longer, so that costs $62,800 and will prolong the life of the structure, hopefully in perpetuity. The dowel laminated timber roof is $59,100 add-on, and that's to keep birds out of it. And the roof's important too. There's nowhere for shelter in that area for boats or people in the park, so I think that'll be, as we get these intense storms rolling through, a welcome addition. And finally, the superstructure arch lighting is an aesthetic element that will really make this a landmark 24 hours a day. So with council support, we will forward those added features to the design.
Thank you. Any further comments? It's moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Miller. The Council of the Corporation of Town of Smith Falls select Structure Craft's proposal of a clear span shallow arch with value-added Alaskan yellow cedar glue-M, DLT roof system, and a second viewing platform upstream, as well as arch lighting for the design of the timber pedestrian bridge replacing the out-of-service Confederation River crossing. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I think there was a misunderstanding about the arch lighting. It wasn't recommended. So the lighting, and Director McMahon can explain this probably better than I, the lighting that was proposed in the submission was lighting along the railing. The value added option was to put lighting along the arch. That wasn't part of the recommendation that staff had made. So I just want to clarify that before we go too far.
Thank you. Director Rahman.
Yeah, inclusive in the base price of the $1,885,100 was the low level lighting that will illuminate the lower decking. The value added superstructure arch lighting of 81.8 would be in addition to the bylaw that's going to be passed at the $2,099,000. It would be an additional 81.8 on top of that, so that puts us up into $2,100,000 and some odd $1,000. So I just want to be clear on that I noted the value add superstructure arch lighting at 81.8 to give consideration to council if they wanted to select that here this evening. Right, so there's the base price plus the value added that we talked about in our working group session.
Okay.
So just so you understand that if we were to select the superstructure arch lighting, which would be up at the top to shine down, would be an additional 81.8. And it should be noted as well that we do have the basic impact assessment to go through with Parks Canada. So it's unknown at this point to what degree the lighting can be incorporated on the bridge. We're pretty confident that we can go ahead with the low level lighting to illuminate the deck because it's more shining up, in and around the decking as opposed to something up in the arches that's shining down on the water. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Comments, Councilor McGuire, I guess start with you.
Yeah, well, sorry, I was confused there. I thought it was the arch lighting.
You wish to remove that from the motion?
Is it something that we can look at a future meeting when we have more information from DFO, or?
I believe so. But just to note that it would be an additional 81,800.
Well, if we can park that, if you're successful with the grant funding, that makes that much more palatable. And I assume it's something that we wouldn't have to make a decision on today. So for the moment, I guess those who are supporting the motion, are you comfortable with removing, first, I guess it's your motion. Would you be comfortable removing that from the motion? And then is that what people are supporting?
If there's consensus to leave it in, I'd rather leave it in and then take it out if Parks comes back with something. But from the discussions, I just, in my head, I had that lighting on the arch,
Okay. Well, I guess I'll turn to my colleagues. Councilor Miller?
Thank you. So I'm comfortable with parking it and revisiting it if we get the grant. And also, if the lower deck lighting is the way to bring our good friends at Parks Canada on board, I think that's the way to go. So I would suggest we remove it for now and revisit it down the road.
Okay. Others? Councilor Quinn?
I have to agree with Councillor Miller. I think let's just park it. Doesn't mean we're going to completely eliminate, but that will give us a chance and to discuss it later. And you're right, if that's the point with Parks Canada, then.
Okay. You fine with the consensus?
Yeah, just as long as we talk about it again, I don't want to leave it tonight.
Okay.
Because I regret not doing it on the pedestrian structure.
Okay.
So do I amend that or reread it?
Clerk Costello?
No, you can go ahead and proceed with that
Okay.
clause removed.
Okay, so that part is removed. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, 9.2, Councilor Brennan.
Sorry, thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor McKenna. Whereas the Ontario Planning Act and Ontario Heritage Act gives municipalities significant authority to regulate matters of land use, planning, and heritage conservation in a coordinated manner that accommodates the needs of the town of Smith Falls and broader community. Whereas Council has adopted a land need study that has identified a need for additional lands for residential development and a strategic plan that has identified rapid supply of housing as a strategic priority. Whereas an easement under Section 10 of the Ontario Heritage Act inhibits the ability of the Council to manage heritage conservation in all matters of public interest in a coordinated manner that considers all local needs and stakeholders. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls requests the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism to remove the heritage easements that has applied to the lands of the former Rideau Regional Center, now Gallipo Center, pursuant to Section 10 of the Ontario Heritage Act.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Pretty self-explanatory. I think we discussed it in full at our COW earlier, but the long and the short of it, there may be an interest in purchasing the Gallipo Center, and this particular feature of the it's an easement that it was part of the original sale, and it's imposed by the provincial government. So we're requesting that to be removed to ease the sale of the property with any luck.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councilor McGuire?
Thanks, Your Worship. Would there be consensus from council to change, remove, to modify the heritage easement that has been applied?
I'll turn to my colleagues. No. I personally, I don't, because I think there's too much discretion to them. I think my personal feeling is we can deal with that
This was
here,
discussed at
as we have with all
COW.
the heritage assets in our community. Yes.
So I'd like to ask for a recorded vote on this. I think it's really irresponsible for council to write to the ministry without any plan in place of what we're going to do to protect the property or protect the aspects of the property that are worth protecting. To remove the heritage easement, is something that the ministry does not need to consult us with, has not solicited our advice on through council. Nobody's asking for this. We haven't run it through our Municipal Heritage Committee through its scope of terms of reference that I think would have good comments on this. And as we heard from our planner, Mr. Grenke, as soon as that easement's gone, the property owner could issue a demolition permit and the town would have to deal with that in 30 days. So there's nothing protecting the property. I think that property is culturally significant, it's socially significant, it's architecturally significant, and there's a really good reason why the province invested time and money in writing the heritage easement to begin with. Now it's become a limitation on the development that can happen at the site, but for the town to come and have this strong opinion on it all of a sudden, unsolicited dissent of the ministry, without any plan in place, and no track record of designated properties that are of significant interest in the town, and no recent experience with that, it's very irresponsible, and I think ill-timed, so I won't be supporting it tonight.
Any further? I think record vote has been requested. It's moved by Councillor Brandon, second by Councillor McKenna. As Ontario Planning Act and Ontario Heritage Act gives municipalities significant authority to regulate matters of land use, planning, and heritage conservation in a coordinated manner that accommodates the needs of the town of Smith Falls and the broader community. Whereas council has adopted a land needs study that has identified a need for additional lands for residential development and a strategic plan that has identified the rapid supply of housing as a strategic priority. Whereas an easement under Section 10 of the Ontario Heritage Act inhibits the ability of the council to manage heritage conservation and all matters of public interest in a coordinated manner that considers all local needs and stakeholders. Now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls requests that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism to remove the heritage easement that has been applied to the lands of the former Rideau Regional Center, now Gallipo Center, pursuant to Section 10 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and a recorded vote has been requested. Clerk Costello.
Thank you, Mayor Panko. If council members could reply with either yay or nay regarding the heritage easement at the Gallipo Center. Councillor Brennan?
Yay.
Councillor Quinn?
Yay.
Councillor Miller?
Yay.
Councillor McKenna?
Yay.
Councillor Robinson?
Yay.
Councillor McGuire?
Nay.
Mayor Panko?
Yay.
Carried.
Thank you. On to our bylaws. 10.1, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robinson, the bylaw to adopt a community grants policy. The town of Smith Falls be received no matter the first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to adopt a community grants policy for the town of Smith Falls be received and read the first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Discussion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is the first significant update. The town has had a community grants policy for a number of years under the leadership of Manager Crowder. She undertook a review and an update, including a very robust consultation with 35 groups and individuals who are interested in this topic. And as a result of that review, she's come back with a very doable, practical, and helpful policy.
Thank you. Any other commentary? Third reading, please.
Again, moved by myself, second by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to adopt community grants policy for the town of Smith Falls be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10585-2024.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna and second by Councillor Robinson. The bylaw to adopt the community grants policy for the town of Smith Falls be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10585-2024. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll wait for the return of Councillor Miller, who's up next.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a pre-servicing agreement with 1686994 Ontario Inc., Parkview Homes, to administer the terms and conditions of the site work and infrastructure on the subject lands in advance of final subdivision approval be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Miller and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a pre-servicing agreement with 1686994 Ontario Inc., Parkview Homes, to administer the terms and conditions of the site work and infrastructure on the subject lands in advance of final subdivision approval be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, please.
Thank you. So this bylaw allows Parkview Homes the opportunity to prepare to construct roads and the servicing infrastructure needed for the next subdivision. So I'd just like to pass on my thanks to Parkview Homes for continuing to invest in new housing developments in Smith Falls.
Thank you. Any other comments? Third reading, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a pre-servicing agreement with 1686994 Ontario Inc., Parkview Homes, to administer the terms and conditions of the site work and infrastructure on the subject lands in advance of final subdivision approval be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10586-2024.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Miller and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a pre-servicing agreement with 1686994 Ontario Inc., Parkview Homes, to administer the terms and conditions of the site work and infrastructure on the subject lands in advance of final subdivision approval be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10586-2024. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Quinn, you have the next bylaw.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to adopt the new guide to filming and application process to facilitate and support film production activities in the town of Smith Falls be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Quinn and seconded by Councillor Robinson that a bylaw to adopt the new guide to filming and application process to facilitate and support filming production activities in the town of Smith Falls be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Discussion, please, Councillor Quinn.
This is to get our guide into place so we can encourage filming companies to come here and use the great facility that we have in the town and make everything easy for them.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that a bylaw to adopt the new guide to filming and application process to facilitate and support filming, production, and activities in the town of Smith Falls be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10587-2024.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Quinn and seconded by Councillor Robinson that a bylaw to adopt the new guide to filming and application process to facilitate and support filming production activities in the town of Smith Falls be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10587-2024. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a funding agreement providing the terms and conditions of the release of $10,000 for property described as 17-23 Beckwith Street North under Program 13 of the Community Improvement Plan be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a funding agreement providing the terms and conditions of release of $10,000 for property described as 17-23 Beckwith Street North under Program 13 of the Community Improvement Plan be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Discussion, please, Councilman.
Yes. The owner of this property has applied for a CIP grant of $10,000 to help with a steel roof and facade upgrades, including planting of hydrangeas and flower beds in front of the community, as well as some tile work on fixing the tiles on the steps.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Your third reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a funding agreement providing, I lost my place here, release $10,000 for property described as 17-23 Beckwith Street North under Program 13 of the Community Improvement Plan be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10588-2024.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a funding agreement providing the terms and conditions of release of $10,000 for the property described as 17-23 Beckwith Street North under Program 13 of the Community Improvement Plan be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10588-2024. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Councillor McKenna.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor McGuire, that a bylaw to award contract 24 PW023 to Structure Craft Builders, Inc. for the design and construction of a timber pedestrian bridge replacing the out-of-service Confederation Drive river crossing in the amount of $2,099,003, which includes net HST of 1.76%. Be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor McKenna and seconded by Councillor McGuire that a bylaw to award contract 24-PW-023 to Structure Craft Builders, Inc. for the design and construction of a timber pedestrian bridge replacing the out-of-service Confederation Drive river crossing in the amount of $2,099,003, including net HST of 1.76%. Be received, heard a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Discussion, please.
As Councillor McGuire so eloquently said earlier, Structure Craft has added many features to this bridge design, and the details will follow. So it's quite a unique bridge for Eastern Canada. And I recall that it was more than a year ago, a couple came forward as a delegation, and they were proposing that we consider a wood bridge structure at the time. And I thought it was too late, but council stuck with it, staff stuck with it, passionate people stuck with it, and we've got a really good product. There were 5 bids, the lowest being the one that we've accepted from Structure Craft, and the highest was up to $3.6 million. And so we're really delighted to bring this forward tonight.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, not to relitigate it, but I won't be supporting it. I think it's way too much money, and it's about priorities, so I'll ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, so noted. That's it. It's moved by Councillor McKenna and seconded by Councillor McGuire that a bylaw to award contract 24-PW-023 to Structure Craft Builders, Inc. for the design and construction of a timber pedestrian bridge replacing the out-of-service Confederation Drive river crossing in the amount of $2,099,003, including net HST of 1.76%. Be now but a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10589-2024. A recorded vote has been requested. Clerk Costello.
Thank you. Regarding bylaw 10589-2024, if council members could reply with yay or nay. Councillor Brennan?
Nay.
Councillor Quinn?
Yay.
Councillor Miller?
Yay.
Councillor McKenna?
Yay.
Councillor Robinson?
Nay.
Councillor McGuire?
Yay.
Mayor Panko?
Yay.
Carried.
Thank you. Any inquiries or announcements? Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Worship. Just October the 28th is the Heritage Symposium here in Smith Falls at the Station Theatre from 9 till 3. Should be quite interesting. Get your tickets and come out and enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have what might be the first inquiry, I think, in the last couple of years.
Oh, okay.
I had a name tag at the desk here. It seems to have walked away. If anybody is pretending to be Councillor McGuire, I'd appreciate it back.
Have you forgotten
just
your
after
name?
Halloween. If you need it for Halloween, you can keep it, but please return it November 1st.
Okay.
Where are you anyway?
Some foster out there somewhere. Yes, Councillor McKenna.
Well, I don't have his name tag, but just an announcement, we're halfway through our term. We're 2 years in, and in less than 2 years, there'll be an election. I really hope people consider running for this amazing job. It's a terrific opportunity, and we need diverse people to come out and run for office in a couple of years, and we need people to vote as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Confirmatory bylaws with Councillor McGuire, please.
Your Worship, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor
Robinson.
That a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting on the 3rd and 23rd days of September 2024 be received and read a first time and taken as a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Robinson. The bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting on the 3rd and 23rd days of September 2024 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion?
No further discussion.
Okay, third reading, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robinson that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting on the 3rd and 23rd days of September 2024 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10590-2024.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting on the 3rd and 23rd days of September 2024 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10590-2024. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And our final piece of business with Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:21 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Brennan. This council adjourns proceedings at 7:21 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next meeting called meeting of council. All in favor? We are adjourned. Good night, everyone.
I almost needed a ride home tonight. Almost.
Oh, I do.
Okay. Oh, good.
Okay, Peter.